All right, good afternoon, everyone. Are you guys all healthy today? All right, and so we're going to start our webinar today. And so, first, I would say thank you to everyone who have taken this opportunity to attend this webinar. It's such an honor for me and my friend to be your moderator today. And so, before I start discussing, or before we start discussing into this webinar, I would like to read you the rules, the webinar rules and etiquettes. And so, rule number 1, it is obligated to turn on your camera. The second one, the participants will be muted for voice hearing during the presentations, but will be able to provide questions via the chat mechanism on the online meeting software, which is Zoom. Public participants' questions will be addressed during the public comments period per schedule or get answered via chat. The participants will be able to create a discussion and ask questions during discussion period as mentioned in the schedule above. Do not close your session or log out during the seminar. You may leave anytime in between, but your re-login may not be connected as it may interrupt the system. You can log out after the event finishes. On the 6th, you may not ask personal questions or non-subject related questions during the event. The format for asking questions, remember guys, take notes on this. So if you're going to ask questions, you would write your first name, comma, then your question. I repeat it again. So the format for asking a questions or asking numerous questions, so you would have your first name, let's say for example, Marco, comma, I have this question. What happens with blah, 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 blah? You guys understand? And then for the last one, ask questions concisely. Webinars are focused. Be sure your questions are too. Avoid wasting time in lengthy introductions and don't self-promote or spend a lot of time sharing your opinion before asking a question. If you have comments, ask yourself if this will help others before commenting. All right? And so I think the webinar's rules and regulation and etiquettes is clear. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Marco. I'm from President University Environmental Engineering student. And so my friend Rani, maybe you would like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Hi everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Reni Dusetiani. I'm also a student in President University majoring in environmental engineering. I'm so glad to be your moderator today, and I want to say to all of you, welcome to this webinar. Our title today is Youth Mobility in Climate Change, Tangible Action for a Better Future. So, as we know from the poster and caption that spread on social media, this webinar is held in collaboration between President University Major Association, Environmental Engineering, and Climate Educate. In this webinar, we will discuss about the concept of climate change and its implication, and what should we do as youth generation to fighting about that, and many more. Okay, Marco, what's next?
Right. Before we go to our next schedule, I want you guys to turn on your webcams because it is obligated so that we can see your beautiful faces that you guys are here today. And so the next plan, or what's coming up next, we will have a welcoming speech by our chairperson or our president in President University Majoring Association, Environmental Engineering. And so Mr. Muhammad Nur Alamshah, the time and place is yours.
Okay, thank you, Marco. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon from Indonesia, everyone. First, the Honorable the Speaker of the webinar, Mrs. Gadir Arafeh, the Honorable Head of President University's Environmental Engineering Study Program, Menteni Wikaningrum, the Honorable Chief Director of ATO Climate Educate, Mr. John Carl Alonsagai, the Honorable all President University lecturers who have attended the webinar, and the Honorable all webinar participants today. First of all, thank God for bringing us all together in this webinar today. Secondly, I, Muhammad Nur Alamsah, as chairperson of PUMA ENV, representing Environmental Engineering Study Program of Presiden University and PUMA Environmental Engineering. We would like to thank the ATO Climate Educate who have trust to collaborate with us, PUMA ENV. Hopefully, this collaboration can be the first step for us to be able to make an event in the future. Thirdly, thank you to the committee who prepared the webinar today, especially the Research and Development Division of PUMA ENV and ATO Climate Educate. And also thank you to all the enthusiastic webinar participants today. This means that there are still many people care about our Earth and climate change. The last, hopefully, all of us can take a lot of knowledge from the material that will be delivered by our speaker today, and happy following the webinar. That's all from us. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
All right, thank you for your welcoming speech, Mr. Nur Alamshah. And now, Rani, I think we should, let an introduction of the climate education. Maybe
Yeah,
Rani,
of
you can.
course, Marco. And also we have a welcoming speech from Climate Educate representative, Mr. John Carl Alensage. The time and place is yours.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you. So good afternoon from the Philippines. We are very honored to work with our dear friends from Indonesia. And we also give our special thanks once again to our participants from more than 7 countries. So in spite with our situation, we are given the opportunity during this pandemic to learn from various platforms. And I believe that climate change and our role as the youngest generation provided with the responsibility to continue the fight for environmental justice and all other social issues that encompasses each other. So to introduce myself, my name is John Carl. I'm currently affiliated with the ATO Climate Educate Project. So Climate Educate Project was launched in 2016 after our training with former US Vice President and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Al Gore in Manila, in the Philippines. Climate Educate Project is a climate change education project, which is composed of youth climate advocates, researchers, educators, and students from more than 13 developing countries. We recently collaborated with the Climate Reality Project Australia and the Lord Mayor's Charitable Foundation for the implementation of the project titled Climate Education Nexus, which you can see on the screen. The project aims to develop 3 outputs for climate education related initiatives. So this includes school community outreach, just like this one. We collaborated with PUMA. Another one is an online learning platform suitable for both offline and online use, and a network of educators. So unfortunately, the pandemic has affected our work, but we strive to continue our initiatives by finding alternative ways and to accomplish the project until its end on the last quarter of this year. So we are very glad to collaborate with a wonderful team from the President University Major Association of Environmental Engineering, or PUMA ENV, which is a student organization based in President University, Bekasi, West Java, Indonesia. We also thank one of our pioneer members from Indonesia, Ms. Michelle Gunawan, who made this possible. Terima kasih. I look forward to this very interesting discussion, and we wish that this will provide you with new insights and learning experience regarding youth engagement on climate change. Thank you very much, everyone, and stay safe.
Okay, thank you, Mr. John Carl Arnsage. But before we move to the next agenda, I want to remind all of you, all participants, to turn on your camera because it's obligated. Thank you. And Marco, what's next?
All right, so next I would introduce you guys our speaker today. As I was reading her curriculum vitae, or her CV, a few days ago, I read that she did so many things, so much wonderful. Like, I would just read a little bit off of to you guys. And so for her academic qualifications, she has Master of Science in Water and Environmental Science, Institute of Environmental and Water Studies from Bristol University. And for her bachelor, She has received at Environmental Physics, College of Applied Science, Palestine Polytechnic University. Oh yeah, not to mention her name, I forgot. And so her name is, you can call her Mrs. Gadir Arefa, and she is from the Palestine. And you know, she is married and she has completed so many projects. Like for example, rainwater harvesting analysis using water harvesting evaluation tool project. Then she also has harvested rainwater in Yatta area, Palestine. And she also follows with several awareness campaign such as PRC and many things. Also, she did with water and sanitation solutions to the refugees, 2 cases from Jordan and Palestine. And so, and not to mention also, she has so many ongoing projects. Not in addition, she has so many published research studies too. And so Mrs. Gadir, she is very expert in this very topic. And so without further ado, let's just invite her so that she could give her presentation. All right, Mrs. Gadir, the time and place is yours.
Thank you, Marco, for this nice introduction. Well, actually, at the beginning, I'm really so happy to be here today among you and to talk about the very vital and important issues that touch all of us as influencer and active youth in the current era. And we have, as a youth, we have a voice that can be counted and influence the current policies in the world. And we felt this from many of experiences that we got. So our topic today, it's about the climate change and the role of youth as an effective agent in changing the course of facts and changing the role of the youth, the situation for to live in a better world for ourselves, for our families, for our children, and even for the next generation and for the future generation. So the objective of the meeting for today is will be as follows: to answer or to discuss the concept briefly of the climate change and its implications, take into account the social and economical implications, and answering the question of why youth should be involved in fighting the climate change, as well as, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. And as well as to provide insights on tangible and real action that youth can take to catalyze change in their and our communities. So at the beginning, why did climate change become the hot topic these days? So most of the important, most of the social media, we can hear about it. In social media, we read a lot of scientific papers in this regard. And we also, if we following the TV, television, and radio, we hear a lot about this issue in these days. Every day, around every day, we hear about it. Why did climate change become the most important these days? So let me give you a brief explanation about the concept of climate change and its effects on the environment and the society. So we have to determine the difference between two important concepts, which are the weather versus the climate. Okay, because in order to not get confused between these two concepts. So weather is a specific event or conditions that occurs over a period of hours or days. For example, a snowstorm, or today's temperature, all of these describes as a weather. But the climate refers to average weather conditions in a place over many years, usually for we can at least 10 or 20 years. So the average climate around the world is called global climate. So what is the causes of the climate change? There is a lot of things that cause a climate change. One of them is naturally become because of the Earth cycle and so on. But the most important, and most of the scientists agreed that the man-made and the industrial situation make almost 90% of the causes of the climate change. If we see the when the man become introduce different kind of products, and they allowed to and given them the permission to build the factories and build the many different products that we use in our daily life. So these products, when we produce them in the process, in their process, we produce many different kind of waste. One of them is air, such like the air contamination, including CO2 and methanes and etc. So these gases or the air contamination which release from these factories, actually they collected all of them around the earth. So, and this causes the rising the global temperature, which lead to other changes around the world, such as melting the glaciers and loss of wildlife habitats. And this means a change in one place can lead to other changes somewhere else. For example, when air temperature rises, the ocean absorbs more and heat from the temperature and become warmer. And warmer oceans in turn can cause stronger storms. And however, these current periods of warming is occurring more rapidly than any past events. And it becomes clear that humanity has caused most of the last century's warming by releasing heat-trapping gases, commonly referred to as a greenhouse gases. So it is clear right till now. Sorry.
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah, okay, great. So we talk about the causes of the climate change for example, to see how the board acted because of this issue. Let's go back to the 1992, where around 165 nations signed an international treaty, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. They have held meetings annually till now, and called conferences of the parties, and these meetings aim to development tools and methods to reduce the climate change, as well as adapt to its already visible effects. As I told you, the effects of climate change are already being felt, and we can feel these effects, but they will get worse in the future. Because of that, we have to take action. We have to be part of the solution as a youth and think like a scientist. As we see the impacts, we have to learn the basic, and we have to know what is the causes of the climate change. And then of course, we all don't want to reach to a point which is not, let's say, a zero point, or to feel the big, huge problems, and then we feel it, and then we ask ourselves, this is the deadline, so we have to to take action. No, we have to take action from now, and then in order to change our behavior, change our adaptation, and change our mitigation process regarding everything in our daily life, our production, industry lines, and etc. So why do young people have an effective and active role these days? Why all eyes now on young people? So that they have the ability to bring the solution to change. Well, actually, in the past few years, it has been observed that young people have positive energies that can be created by setting up youth units or networks or groups thinking together for the sake of making differences, as the world has witnessed many among the youth groups and networks, including this group that Carl mentioned first, which is now we are one of our activities is the climate education nexus, which has this group and network has a clear impact on the world level in terms of producing knowledge and transmission it to the other people, and rising component and raising awareness among young people and schools regarding climate change, and how can we adapt to these changes, and how can they be mitigated by taking effective measures. So the reason that young people are such an important group to make that change. Actually, young people can be a factor also in the change and policy making that be like up to, like for example, identifying the polluter, who is the polluter, and he must or she or the company must pay because they pollute, or they must stop their pollution, or that they caused and release it to the environment and affect our public health. So we as a youth, we can think as a policy maker changer. So we can change these policies. We still have the ability, and I think as a young people have enormous potential, and we have to direct any problems or any situation that we want in order to change our future and to live in a better world. We have to make the change that we want in order to live in a healthy environment. So one of the there is another networks that already works, and I want to mention it here in this webinar, which is the Mediwatt. This is a group of youth also working around in the Mediterranean region, and they make different kind of activities in order to change the world. For example, doing similar webinars from time to time, and for example, conducting a working paper or different studies, evidence-based studies that give us a real results regarding the impact of the climate change. And one of the studies that recently we have finished, I want to shed light about it, which is we measured here in Palestine the knowledge and the attitude and the behavior regarding the climate change. And actually, we found a very impressive surprising results that youth, we have do really know about the climate change and its effects and what is the climate change, but unfortunately they don't know how to react, and they don't know how to make this change, or they want they want any other institutions or any other network to push them in order to make this change. So this gives us a message that youth, they have the ability, but they want to someone else push them to do that change. But I think no, we as a youth, we have to push ourselves in order, in an appropriate way, in order to make that change. So we have not to be included in any solution. We have to go and research, and anything we believe we have to make and conduct, we can make it. We can create any innovative technology that brings solution to the climate change. All of these kind of opinions and these things are new in our era. So let's say as a youth, we have a different kind of thinking. We can think in a different way. We can think in a way that how we live in our lives, how we do really feel that these effects of the climate change. So during our lifestyle, we can produce new technology, and we can develop a new innovation that can make a change. And we have heard a lot of innovation that talk from youth. They make a change. Let's say in a small make a small effects or make a huge effects in our world. But all of these innovation, they come from youth. And most of here now we witness a policy changes in our area, and all of these changes are made by youth. So you can join any networks that make their aim is to involve in order to fighting climate change. You can engage with them. You can be part of these networks and communicate with new people, and discussing with other people give us a new ideas and give us a new opinions, and we can see other people's how they are live, and how do other people in other countries how do they live. So our voice, believe me, can be heard, and we can make a change. And believe in yourself, and believe in your ability that you can, even if you was one individual, you can do that change. So I hope, because the time it's very short, but talking about this topic, it needs a lot of webinars, and need to meet from time to time, and each topic actually it's need to give its right time in order to talk about it, in order to really to find out these effects. So I believe in youth, and I believe you can do that change, and I believe if you didn't or you don't find anyone to hear you, you have to push yourself to make the world hear you. By doing a lot of exercises, activities, you can write articles about this issue, and that actually what we are doing in the climate project. And I hope it was clear and you can understand me. And if you want to ask about anything, I would be love to to answer it. And thank you very much for all of you.
All right. Thank you for your wonderful presentation, Mrs. Arifa. And so this is for the Q&A session. But before we go to the Q&A session, don't forget, we will write down the link to your attendance list. It's like an attendance list. And so don't forget to fill that out, you know, write your name maybe, and then fill out some questions about how we did in the webinar so that our team could self-evaluate. And so now it's time for Q&A sessions. Do you guys have any questions for Mrs. Arifa? So I just want to remind you guys again. So the format of the question is your first name and then comma your question, all right? And so if you guys have any question, the time and place is yours.
Okay, there's first question from Zaidan. Is it true that the livestock industry is the biggest cause of environmental damage occurring today, deforestation, etc., and our livestock and the waste produced by it are the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases and climate change? How do we deal with that kind of problem as a youth? Please, Mr. Sugadir. I'm sorry, Mr. Sugadir, we cannot hear you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah,
now
we can hear you.
Okay. What was the question? Because I missed the...
The question is in the comment section, Mrs. Goodyear. If
Yeah.
do you want me to read it again for you?
Yeah, please.
All right. A question from Zaidan. He said, is it true that the livestock industry is the biggest cause of environmental damage occurring today? For example, like deforestation and etc. And our livestock and the waste produced by it are the biggest emitters of greenhouse gases and climate change. How do we deal with that kind of problem as a youth?
Yes, actually, yes, you are right. Let's say not livestock production itself make the damage to the environment, but we can see it from another perspective. For example, if we use the manure of this livestock, and we can, because it releases the methane and the greenhouse gases to the environment, and this lead, if we produce it in a very huge very quantity, so it can make effects. So, but we can find solution, and we can doing it doing the compost from its manure. So doing the compost, we can use the waste of this livestock in order to produce another thing that can be used in our daily life, like renewable energy, producing gas, which can we use it in our kitchen for cook, for example. So we can capture all of this waste, the greenhouse gases, and we can capture all of this the manure and produce it compost, which is very important. We can use it as instead of the fertilizer for the agriculture purposes. So if we use it for the agricultural purposes instead of the chemicals which is affect our health, so we can use this as a natural production of fertilizer. Yes. I hope my answer was clear.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Gadir, for your answer.
Yeah.
Actually, I have I have a questions for you. Uh, what do you think about people that don't believe in climate change?
Yeah. Actually, this is really strange because we know there is a lot of people, even in social media, they say climate change is not clear. Climate change is, let's say, kind of a lie. So actually, these people they don't believe about climate change, and it's not because they do really believe in scientists. No, actually, they have different agenda. They have, for example, these climate change effects, and if we change the policy in order to minimize these effects, their business and their industry or their money will be reduced as well, because they have to save the environment from one side, and another side they have to make the change and adaptation in their for example industry, if they have a factories or they have a production industry lines. So this will affect their business, and this will affect their money and their profits. Because of that, they go to make this a lie. It's more easy for them, and to say to the board, it's not true. Don't believe the scientists because because it touch their profit and their business.
Okay, thank you for your explanation.
Yeah.
Is there any other questions that you guys would like to ask? Feel free to ask. Also, I just want to add, if someone doesn't believe about climate change, that is an absurd thing, honestly. It is because if you look at the glaciers that we have in Antarctica and the North Pole and South Pole, the glaciers are melting. And if you know that if the glaciers are melting, that means we have more quantity of water inside the oceans, which has an effect maybe that could flood into our land, into our nations, and so our earth will be underwater. Just for extra information, I guess. Is there any questions? Maybe feel free to ask.
Mr. Moderator, is it okay if I add some points regarding the question?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. Oh, I think it's all about how climate change is being communicated, because if you can observe in how media communicates climate change, it's more kind of pessimistic. I mean, there are studies that have provided results that a pessimistic way, or like an alarmist way of teaching or introducing climate change, does not encourage action at all. So I believe that most people, I mean, most people who are not in the business sector, who are primarily the most vulnerable, especially in developing countries, I think that communicating climate change in a more evidence-based, as mentioned in Mrs. Gadir's presentation, and as well as providing context. You can't teach melting glaciers in a tropical country, just like in Southeast Asia. But we can tell them that the melting of glaciers in both Arctic and Antarctic has some impact on us. So we can probably tell them that there is a data stating that our seas are rising. So yeah, we can relate it to that. My point is, I think that when we communicate climate change in our communities, there is context that is really needed. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carl, for your explanation. Oh, there's another question from Aura. What is your opinion about the youth can influence the government to make policy due to these earth conditions? Mrs. Gadir, can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, what is your opinion about the youth can influence the government to make policy due to this earth conditions? Well, actually, as my colleague explained before, climate change impacts from country to country is different. So each community have its same impacts, but all of the global impact, the impact reflect to or let's say linked with each other. So how can youth influence the government to make policy? For example, I will say in our community we have one of businessman. He have a lot of money and he want to build or establish his factory inside of the let's say around a community of people and near in their houses. So because he have money, maybe the government will give him the permit to do so, which is not acceptable and which is not good for the health of the people who are living near this area. So youth can make a movement. Youth can go to the street and can hold signs. Make anything using social media in order to prevent this issue, in order to make this, for example, given an example, given this permit to be to end this thing. So I think from time to time, when youth work together and they went or go to the street and ask the government to do so, so the government will say, see the youth, they really need the change, and they have the message and they want to make these things to be changed. So if they do so and these youth succeed to make this change, so it will then the government will give them a value like they become heard. So and from time to time, these youth, if they communicate with each other, it's not a problem, or it's easy to read the policy and the laws and the legislation in each country, how we deal with the climate change, the adaptation and the mitigation. So if we see something is wrong in our policy, we have to write, for example, a paper or an article about this issue, and go to the government, ask them, we want to meet you, and set a date for a meeting, conduct a meeting with them, with the president. It's not something difficult. We can meet the president of the country or any related people who have the high position, and ask them about this issue. And we have another perspective as a youth regarding this issue, and we want to make this change. So we can follow different steps from the beginning till make this this change coming through. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Gadir, for your explanation. Is there any questions for all of you guys? I want to ask you something, Mrs. Gadir.
Yes.
As
please.
we know, in this time, there are a spread of virus named COVID-19. And is
Yeah.
the virus affect the climate change or not?
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention it about the virus COVID-19, coronavirus. Actually, the more evidence that make a clear or make to to understand and to know that the man-made is the most causes of the climate change. We can know this during this time of the COVID-19, because as we know, most of the countries they ask their people to stay home and lock down, and because of the breakdown of the virus, and they ask us to make a social distances. So doing all of these actions, and while we staying at the home, and most of our business is stopped, and most of our schools, university, and we are working online. So most of the communication as well is stopped as well. So, so no producing any another greenhouse gases, no producing any air contamination or pollution. So most of the scientists noticed that there is the ozone depletion has been reduced because we stopped producing another or other greenhouse gases. So this is affect the climate change positively, and make or let's say make us make a positive things for our environment. So when the life will come back, all of these things will come back as well. The contamination, the air pollution, the industry, and etc. So the situation will come back worse as well. So this is the rapid, let's say, the rapid correction regarding the greenhouse gases releases give us a clear evidence that the human and the man-made is the more causes of the climate change impacts.
Okay, thank you for your explanation.
You're
All right, is
welcome.
there any questions or from, because there are in here, we have 59 participants. Is it really that clear for you guys to not ask questions? Maybe if you guys are wondering or something, maybe Mrs. Yola or Miss Yola, or maybe Miss Ajeng or Jani or Miss J or Miss Honey, maybe you guys want to ask something?
Oh, there is another question from Alam. Based on your experience, how much influence youth have in carrying out the climate change movement, and how can we cooperate with the government? Because sometimes the government always ignores the problem of climate change.
Yes, right. Well, I agree with you. And this need, it's not a kind of flash. The change will not come quickly. No, we have to work together, and from time to time we can make the effects. For example, we heard a lot of youth movement who go or went to the street and holding signs that in order to highlight the issue of climate change globally, and for and to affect and influence their governments. So this is happening, unfortunately, that sometimes the governments ignores the problem of the climate change, and even ignore the youth, and see them as you are still don't have the experience, and you still don't have such kind of this And so how do you come and talk about this issue because you don't have the experience? So I think no, we have to be more stronger than this, and we have not feel subset because some of the people they ignore our solution. No, we have if one solution has been ignored, we can go and find another one in order to make our message to be reached.
Thank you, Mr. Gadir, for your explanation. Is there any questions? Please, guys, this is free. So if you confused about something, you can ask now.
All right, if there's no one is asking, well, I'll ask a question. Mrs. Gadir, do you have an estimation when will the ozone will be gone? Since you say that the green gas and that the ozone is decreasing, do you have an estimation of time when we won't have any ozone? And if that happens, what happens to us since we won't have any ozone?
Yeah, well, actually, as I told you, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we stopped our lives and staying home. So everything in our lives, like using the communication and etc., has been stopped as well. So it's very difficult to imagine that all of this will stop forever, because we live and based on these issues and these things, but we have to find an alternative to prevent the pollution, or have another alternatives to use an innovation technology to live in different patterns, not as we are living now. No, we can, for example, instead of using the biodiesel to run the cars, we can use the running cars using the electricity, or we can use, for example, biodiesel instead of diesel, or instead of solar, which make the emission of the greenhouse gases much less. So we have to change our patterns in the life from time to time to change these emissions and to stop release it to the earth, so, or to the atmosphere. So when we change our patterns, and we can use new technology in this regard. And because of that, the youth is the most important agent in this issue, because they have the new ideas. They have to change this era. You know, all the respect for the people, the old people, but now from 1 hour to another, we facing a new technology, or a new something it was not happening or exist before. Because of that, we can think in a different way, and our thinking can make this changing to change these patterns in our lives. So when we make these changes to capture these emissions, to reduce it, or to even banish it as well, so we will reach the point to ozone, to stop the ozone depletion.
All right, thank you for your explanation. All right, Rennie, maybe you could read the next question that we have inside the comment section.
There's a question from Steve. In your view, is the world doing enough to prevent climate change getting worse? What things need to be improved?
Yes, as the same, like my previous point, the board doing enough to prevent climate change getting worse. Well, let's say we are still in the beginning steps. So we have to push ourselves up and conduct more activities and to reach the point of a change. So the hope is exists inside the heart of the youth, and what is things need to be improved before thinking about how to conduct or how to make these activities. We have to change ourselves from inside. Actually, if we believe that we have to make this to improve the climate change and prevent make it get more worse. So if we believe in our ideas, in our opinions, and we put actions, real actions, and go forward, and anyone ignoring us, just not stop, no. We have to push ourselves to go forward in order to reach and improve these situations. So I think it needs a high level of soul in order to make this a change and work together as a youth from at the same countries or from different countries and work globally to make this a change and improvement.
All right, that's a very good explanation. Thank you, Mrs. Gadir. And so we would move on to the next questions. All right, this question is from Yola. She said, will the remedies to climate change be worse than disease that we are facing these days? In your point of view, will it drive more people into poverty with the higher cost?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yes, of course. Yes. Well, these remediations to the climate change worse than the diseases. You mean the COVID-19? Yes. Yes, we have to pay attention more to the remediation of a climate change. Because the impact of the climate change is more worse than the impact of the COVID-19. We faced in the COVID-19 or these diseases, it's a period of time. We will find the solution for it, and then we will come back to our life easily. But climate change, no. Climate change, it will be with us for a long time. And once we come back to our lives, everything, the contamination will be continue. So as well as the impacts will be also continue and increasing. Because of that, we will reach a point of, as we say, maybe banished a lot of countries because of the snow melts from the mountains. So these mountains will, or these countries will destroyed and will gone. So if we went, this will drive also more people to become more poverty with higher cost. So because of that, we are talking a lot about the climate change and its impacts and how we do actions. And we have to pay attention more to this issue and to produce the knowledge and find a new technology or find a new remediations that not exist. Maybe we can take a Nobels about these issues if we think a lot about it, or we search or find out a new technology or a new remediations, or maybe bioremediations. So yes, it needs more attention than the COVID-19.
Okay, I see, I see. That's a wonderful explanations. And by the way, guys, we want to close out the Q&A sessions. But before that, so Dolker is the last question, is the person to ask the last questions, all right? And so Rennie, maybe you could read the next question. Rennie, your voice is muted.
Sorry. Okay, there's another question from Ina. How the easy way to prevent our climate from deteriorating? Thank you, Mrs. Gadir.
Sorry, can you read it again?
How the easy way to prevent our climate from deteriorating?
Yeah, how to easy way to prevent our climate from deteriorating. Yes, you mean the easy way in our pattern lives, or the easy way you mean the activities or the things? Because I don't understand the question.
The question means that what's an easy way that youth can do to prevent our climate from deteriorating? Deteriorating means to decrease the climate change. What should we do? What's the easy way?
Yes, well, actually, you know, the community have different kind of categories and groups, started from kids, young people, children's, and each categories we have to pay attention for especially itself, because kids, if we make the change from now and make or let's say make them understand what will happen in the future regarding the climate change, so they will born with this soul or spirit to change their behavior or change their patterns in the life. So we can use all of the education materials in a very, let's say, funny way, or we can use it in a way that make it so easy to the kids to understand the climate change and its impact. So this will make a change when they become more younger. So this will be in the future easy for them to make the action, and also for youth. It's not climate change. It's not just for the people who are study environment in the university. No, any young for any majors. If he studied the accountant, or if he engineering in any kind of this major, or if he a doctor, if he a nurse, he any kind of majors or any all of these youth, they should be know about the climate change and what is the climate change, because it missed their lives and our lives as at all. So so knowledge is very important. Producing the knowledge is really very important. Once we convince these people and make them acknowledge these effects regarding the climate change, so the changing their patterns and the changing their behaviors, it will come next.
Oh, I see. And so we have come to the last two questions for this webinar. All right, guys. And so we have a question from Zalfa. He said, or she said, I guess, I think it's a she. From Zalfa, she said, as we know, our main source is from fossils, and renewable sources only provide a small percentage of our whole energy. From your opinion, what can we do to get off fossil fuels as soon as possible?
Yeah, Yes, I mentioned this point before. Fossils coal is actually the main causes for the climate change, because it produces a lot of carbon dioxides and methanes and the greenhouse gases to the environment. So we have to change it to use another technology and focus on the renewable energy sources. For example, biomass, using the biomass from the livestock and the agriculture waste to produce, for example, the compost, to use it as a fertilizer instead of the chemicals one. And we can use the electricity to run the cars instead of the biodiesel, the diesel and the gasoline. So we can use the biodiesel, which already use the biodiesel. We can use it from collecting the waste, the cooking used oils, and produce prevent it to the biodiesel, which is more healthy, and we can use it without releasing more carbon dioxides. So there is a lot of alternatives, but these alternatives, when we use it at the beginning, when we invest in this technology, it needs a lot of capital cost and a lot of monies in order to invest in these technologies. But with time and with running these projects or these innovations, with time it will be for free. For example, when we use fossils like diesel to running the car, we pay a lot of money for per liter. But if we use, for example, the electricity, or if we use the biodiesel at the beginning, when we invest for this factory, it will cost us a lot of money. But next, with for example, after revenue, the money from the project, it will be more such kind of free for the people.
I see. All right. Thank you for your explanation. Moving on to the next question. Maybe Rani, you can take the last question.
Yeah. Before I read the last questions, I want to remind all of you that I've already sent the link in the comment box. So if the link is for your absence and your e-certificate, so please fulfill it. So the last question is from Dalkar. She said, could you explain some steps or ways how youth can contribute in climate activism?
Yeah, well, there is many climate activism can youth contribute in. As we said, they can produce, for example, brochures in this regard, directing the kids, for example, or they can, we can distributed it for many different stages and steps, directing the different categories. So each category need its stage or need its steps, different steps. Regarding the youth, they can conduct, for example, researches or case studies in their countries or in their communities to make this this problem more. If they found it in their countries, they should shed light on it and make even if this thing was from for free, they can conduct it for free, just to reach their voices to the government or to the world. If they believe in this case, they can do it for free, or they can, for example, bring projects to ask donors, we have problems here, and we want to find solution for it. So they can ask for such kinds of help or assistance from the global agency as a network or as a group of youth. Regarding technologies, they can think and they can find new technology. They can shed light during our universities if we conduct our projects for graduation or thesis or for a master for a PhD. We have to focus on this kind of solution in our study in order to build a new conceptations regarding what other colleagues or previous youth did. So we have to start from where they reached.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Gadir, for your explanation. And sorry if the link is not right. We will check it. And then, Marco?
All right. And so since we have reached the end of this webinar, I'm so glad that you guys are being good participants who joined this webinar. And so we would like to thank you, Mrs. Gadir, for presenting to us your wonderful presentation. I'm so glad, and it's such an honor for me and for us as participants to hear your wise words. And so,
Thank
but
you very
before
much.
we,
I'm so sorry.
yeah, and so we are thankful. But before we end, we want to have a virtual photo shoot with you guys. Maybe Carl, you can give the extra detail, maybe.
Oh, all right. So should I lead it?
Yeah, maybe you can just.
All right. So we call this sign climate sign. It's being used by most youth climate movements nowadays. So I think some of you have joined our webinars before. So we use letter C as a sign for commitment to the climate movement. So probably you should raise your right hand and then form the letter C, and then we'll take a photo shoot and then we're done. All right. So we would like to request everyone to please open your cameras, so at least that you will be included in this occasion, in this moment. All right. So again, letter C, not letter K, letter C. All right.
All right, guys.
Okay. All right. I'll count 1, 2, 5, and then I'll do the screenshot. All right. 1, 2, 3, climate sign. Another one. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3, climate sign. All right. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right. And so the link is already here, guys. And so I'm going to share it to you guys in your comment below. If you guys could press on it, could you give me a sign or a claps or something like that? If you guys could tap on the link. All right. Since I see most of you guys could tap on the link, I would like to have a virtual applause to everyone for attending this webinar. And so we would like to close out. As I said, thank you for the presentation, Mrs. Gadir. And maybe Rani, you could say another thank you.
Yeah, I want to say thank you to Climate Educate for agreeing this collaboration. We hope that we can do more cooperation in the future. And then we want to say thank you to our lecturer who has joined this webinar, Mrs. Temi Wikaningrum and Sir Wilson Maratur Sijabat. Thank you very much. And thank you to the committee for arranging this webinar. It's such a wonderful idea. And the most important is thank you to all the participants for joining this webinar. Hopefully the knowledge that has been conveyed can be useful in the future. And don't forget to fulfill the link in the comment section. Thank you.
All right. And that's all for our webinar today. And we would like to close out. So thank you, everyone.
Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much, everyone. Goodbye. See you next time.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, bye.